Okay, just checking if we're live. Let me check this page. Okay, so, okay, let me just check the settings because I'm not too sure. Okay, great, we're live. All right. So, welcome back. So today what I'm doing is I'm just going to answer a group member's question. So Ankit here, sorry, that's Amrit. So sorry about that. So Amrit here has a really interesting question. How do you get a 7.5 in writing? Now, that's of course not a goal most of you people have. Most of you who are taking the general exam will probably just need a 7, right? I mean, in all these years of teaching, about 7-ish years almost, I've only met a handful of people who wanted a 7.5. And that can, of course, be due to age factors, or if you just want a higher score to get, of course, more CRS points now that everything has become so competitive. Last I checked, it was 480-ish, which is, I mean, that's pretty high. So, of course, having that edge in your, IELTS performance, or even like a French performance, by the way, can definitely help you, push you over the edge to get you into that pool. So now that's, I mean, I chose this question to respond to. And, by the way, when you have questions like these, just leave a comment down below, or, you can create a new post and I can, answer viewer questions like that, because that's the whole point of the group, is that, we have a place where you can bring forth your questions. And if you have, let's say if you want to have an essay of yours evaluated or something like that, like a video evaluation, if you want to, get your speaking evaluated, or, if you have a sample or something you'd like me to check, I can do that for you as well. So yeah, to get back to the point, as I was saying, feel free to ask questions. That is, again, this is like something everybody can benefit from. And even if you don't need a 7.5, the things that I'll talk about will definitely help you to use, to kind of understand, okay, how does this thing even get marked, right? And that's why I have this little tab open over here. So of course, all of you are aware of the writing band descriptors, and they have very recently been updated to make it a little bit more clear for you to understand. A lot of people will think that there have been changes in band descriptors, but that is not true. The only reason they've updated these descriptors is so that you, as a normal person, as a test taker, as somebody who's not a teacher, not an examiner, can use these, descriptors to judge yourself. Of course, you don't need to judge yourself if you have a teacher or if you're partaking in a course where you get that kind of one-on-one support. But for those of you that are self-studying, this becomes an important tool. Now, getting a 7.5 out of a 9 is a great score. That also means that my performance has to be at that level. Now, if you watch any of my YouTube videos on my channel, I'll add the link in our comment section here somewhere. You can just search for 8777 IELTS. If you just search for this, you'll find it. Okay, so as I was saying, getting to a 7.5 from where? That's the question. Getting to a 7.5 from 5, like from band 5 to 7.5, that's a huge jump. Or, even if it's from band 5.5, even if it's from a 6 or from, a 6.5. So everybody's, starting point is different. Now, if you have a 7 and you're thinking, okay, how do I get, from band 7 to 7.5, that's going to be a different thing as well. So let's just, kind of briefly, because again, I don't know, Amrit, if you're watching this live, you can just leave a comment down below, so I can, kind of, or, maybe I'll just tag you. Could you let me know your current score? Because that's the most important thing. If somebody called me and told me, I want to do a course, I have, my last exam was a 5.5, I would just say, please be realistic, because come on. It doesn't make sense to give someone fake hope, right? I'm very realistic. I want to support you, I want to guide you, but it's also important to understand when we're learning a language. And of course, most of you in the group, you already speak English, you already use it, you're already a user of English. You know English. But the thing is that there's quite a difference in these levels, right? Somebody at a band 9, for example, this is an ideal, test taker, right? An ideal user of the language. Every tiny detail, every comma, punctuation, every word that they've used, every nuance, everything is just right, very satisfying to read something like that. Now, that's obviously not a level that we're aiming for. But, when it comes to, for example, I've learned 4 languages from scratch. Not like 100% fluent, of course, because I'm still learning. I've learned Russian, German, French, Italian. I've dabbled in Hungarian, Danish, etc., etc. I'm a bit of a language nerd. Why is that even relevant? Because I've learned these languages from zero, from not knowing anything, right? Now, English, you're surrounded by English everywhere. You don't have to go searching for English like you have to go searching for French, German, Italian, Russian, Hebrew, Greek, whatever, right? English is the default. So naturally, you go online, you go outside, you're just surrounded. So all you have to really do is absorb the English around you. But now, specifically in non-native countries, India, Vietnam, etc., etc., we have certain dialects, certain local Englishes. They're called world Englishes, actually. And so when people say, for example, I'm sure almost all of you have heard people say, what's your good name? Now, when I was a child and people would say, what's your good name? And I would be so confused because, what do you mean, what's my good name? Is there a bad name? And I never really understood why they said that, because that's not what I was taught, right? Like, my parents really put a lot of emphasis on ensuring that, I learned English and that I learned it well. So I always had books around me, not, books from, English authors, American authors, etc., or translated books from French or Russian authors. I watched a lot of TV, yes, I did. Not ideal for a child, but fate works in weird ways. So I was constantly exposed to the right model of the language, right? Now, right, so of course, where does this whole what's your good name thing come from? It literally comes from the local languages. In Hindi, it's, aapka shubh naam kya hai, right? And of course, it's kind of similar in other languages as well. And so people literally translate, and that doesn't just happen in India, of course. That happens in any language pair at all. Now, the problem is that people repeat this over and over again. This is just one example, right? or myself from this place, or I hail from this city, or my native place, or my cousin brother, things like that, Indianisms, which is not really wrong, because Indian English is a specific type of English. It's correctly valid within that context. It's accepted. However, when you consider that you want to take an exam, it's an international English exam. So you really want to have your, English be refined to that level, polished to that level. It would be the same thing if I wanted to take a German exam. And I recently had this weird habit where because I listen to a lot of Austrian and Swiss audio, I sometimes pronounce words in an odd way. And, though that's not standard, right? I mean, you could say, oh, but, well, learning a dialect or, an accent of any sort is, of course, a good thing, in fact. But if I'm taking an exam, that counts against me, because the exam I'd be taking, the exams I have taken, in fact, were, standard German. So it's very similar to the exam you're taking is standard English, not dialect, not world Englishes. So the first step is to polish your general language skills. Now that can be a time-consuming process. I admit that is, but you can really speed up that process by consuming native media. So not to say that there's not, of course, there's lots of great, authors from India. There's, of course, a lot of great content being made. But again, you've got to be careful about the quality, because I wouldn't want someone to learn things like what's your good name, myself coming from, etc., etc. Little things like that. In fact, I have this project I'm working on. I'm just creating a list of things that, people who speak Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. I'm sure I'm missing a few languages, but generally they tend to make certain mistakes, right? Grammar, word choice, etc. They're typical of, this language interference. And so once it's ready, it should be ready in like a month or two max. I'll probably just release it so you can, have a look. So polishing your language, right? You need to, if you're aiming for a 7.5, polish and refine your, English to a standard, not something regional, right? You don't want to, there's African American vernacular where, and again, this is not wrong English, just like Indian English is not wrong English, but it's not standard, just like African American vernacular English is not standard. However, it's not wrong. It's not wrong in AAVE, African American vernacular, to say, I ain't gonna do that. For example, I ain't gonna do that. This is correct in that specific dialect. However, if you write that on the IELTS, they're gonna think you don't know the rules of grammar, right? Normally we would say, I am not going to do that. Sometimes they even use subject verb agreement incorrectly. For example, they was here. That would be wrong if you wrote that in an IELTS exam, right? Here you would instead write, they were here. But again, these features, I ain't gone, using double negation, for example. There's this popular song, We Don't Need No Education. I think it's by a British artist. So you don't want to use dialect. You don't want to use any regional variations of English. You want standard English. Yeah, so it's important you consume media. That's what I tell my students as well. Consume media. Now, if you're looking for a small change like 7 to 7.5, then you wouldn't have to do it so intensely. But yeah, if you're at a 5, I would say that's unrealistic. Don't even think about it. For 5.5, it's just unrealistic. Unrealistic as in, within a short time frame. And by short time frame, I mean, let's say 6 months or so, right? It would take over a year for sure. Even for somebody who's roughly around a 6, I would say it would take them a considerable time. But if you're at a 6.5 or 7 already, then it can be achievable within, again, it's not going to be a short-term thing, because moving from 7 to 7.5 means that you're going to have to show, for example, let's look at this. You have to show some benefit, some of these positive features. Now, the last one, lapses in content, that's not a positive feature, but this is a positive feature. This is a positive feature. This is a positive feature. So to get a, to get a 7.5, you need to have all the benefits, all the good, points from band 7, and you need to have like 1 or 2 benefit good points from this band 8 area, right? Similarly here as well, basically 7.5 means I'm not here, but I'm not quite here as well, right? And if you look at these things, all the differences, they're quite minor, which is why I said at that level, refinement of language becomes really important, yeah? So refine your language, consume only native content. Don't consume, I would say it's important that you not consume local content because of dialect and non-standardness. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that when you prepare for an exam, any language at all, it has to be the standard version, right? The standard variant. All right. So what you would have to do is, for example, in terms of grammar, you would want to ensure that, as you can see right here, we've got grammatical range and accuracy. Now, for somebody who's at a band 7 level, look at what they say. They may actually have a few errors in grammar, and that's okay. That is what it means to be a band 7, is you have some errors that keep happening again and again. Persistent errors. For example, if I always make a mistake with pronouns, well, not like always, like not 100%, but maybe like, 50, 60, 70% of the time, right? Let's say I write 10 sentences and in, 5, 6, 7 of them I have, issues with pronouns, for example. So that is called a persistent error. It keeps repeating, it keeps happening over and over again. So that's okay. That's what it means to be a band 7. But not too many, like they've written over here, a few errors. So a few persistent errors. So let's say maybe your script, your writing, your essay has, maybe 3 or 4 issues that keep happening again and again. Like maybe you have issues with subject-verb agreement, relative pronouns, right? What else? Demonstrative adjectives. And you keep, messing it up over and over again. That's okay. That's what it means to be a band 7. But if you're looking for 7.5, you're going to want to reduce persistence. So you can still make mistakes. It's not that if you want to have a 7.5 in grammar, you can't make mistakes. Not at all. You can make mistakes. However, they have to be occasional and also non-systematic. The majority of sentences are error-free, right? So now this is band 8, right? All these things you see right here, this is band 8. You don't have to achieve 100% of this. You just have to achieve 50% of this, right? So how can we, for example, here they say the majority of sentences. What's a majority? A majority is 80 to 90% of sentences. Let's say you write 10 sentences, 8 to 9 of them have no mistakes. I mean, no errors, because an error is something that repeats over and over again. You can have a few mistakes, that's okay. So to bring it down to a band 7.5 level, you can say, let's say maybe, 7, at least 7 out of 10 sentences are error-free. That's band 7.5. In fact, you can actually kind of grade it like that. Let's say, the average essay length depends, but what I teach my students is that you should write an essay that is 14 sentences. That's actually our, method that we teach our students. So 14 sentences. Now, if I need a band 7 in grammar out of my 14, now this is a very rudimentary thing. It's not like some exact math. But out of 14 sentences, your goal should be to have, 10 of those sentences not have major issues, okay? That's just a rough guide. Now, of course, the entire, thing that I'm doing right now, it is just a rough guide because, again, I don't know, Amrit, what level you're at right now. And of course, getting a 7.5 is a lot more than just some tips and tricks, if we're being very honest. So if that is your goal, you probably want to work with a teacher, somebody who has a good track record, because there's zillions of teachers. You need to check their track record. Have they been able to get people to that level? And again, even talk to their previous students if possible, right? So grammar, again, you have to kind of ensure that a good, let's say 75%, 80% of your sentences should not have errors, but they can have mistakes. That's okay. You also need to demonstrate use of what I don't see happening in most band 6.57 essays, conditional sentences. Yeah, use them. Use more relative pronouns. These things will definitely help you. Use more nominalization. Now, if you have given me your email address, you will have received lessons on using pronouns, using dependent clauses, and using nominalization. Also, you'd want to use hedging. These things, however, I'll explain later, maybe in a different live stream. So use these things to improve your chances of getting a higher score in grammar. Then we come to word choice. Now, what a lot of people do is, it's like that meme goes, with all those words increasing in complexity. So with word choice, let's see what they say over here. A wide resource. Wide for Band-Aid versus sufficient, some flexibility. So there's quite a difference. Somebody who's at a band 7 level, for example, can make spelling mistakes, can have some words used in the wrong register, some formal, some informal, style changes, inappropriacies can be there. That is okay. That's what it means to be a band 7. But if you want to get a 7.5 in word choice, again, you will want to ensure, for the simplest thing you can do is ensure that you have no spelling mistakes, right? So that already no spelling mistakes, that already puts you at a, gives you like one positive point from band 9. Yeah. Wow, the cat is running outside. Sorry if you heard that. Okay, so where was I? Right, so make sure you avoid spelling mistakes. Now that is something I don't see a lot of people struggle with spelling, to be honest. But there are some weird things in English. You have EI and IE words and stuff like that. So just brush up on that. I would say to improve your chances of getting a 7.5, avoid, completely eliminate spelling mistakes. And that's not difficult to do. I mean, for most people. Now, if you're at band 5.5 or 6 or something, of course you'll have spelling mistakes. But my goal here is just to show you if you're at this level, right? If you're at 6.5 to 7, and then how can you get to a band 7.5? And again, this is not, what I'm telling you right now. It's not an exhaustive list, because there's lots more, personally, you would also have to be taught a lot of things. So this is just like a guide that you can use for yourself. Right, so avoid spelling mistakes. That's one thing that, puts you right up there. The other thing, what I see a lot of people do is they really force themselves to use idioms in writing and things like that. So avoid idioms, just avoid, avoid idioms, avoid colloquial language, because when you're writing an essay, you really don't want, I mean, although they say that in the general exam, you can write in a personal style, what I have observed is it's much safer to maintain a formal style. That's the standard. That's the gold standard. You can write in a personal style. You can get a band 7, even 7.5. I'm not saying you can't. It's just that it's a risk factor. Most people cannot manage to do it well. And those who can manage to do it well, they wouldn't need a guide like this, because their grammar and word choice skills would already be very high, like 8.5, 9, etc. Like I could manage to do something like that, for example. But then there's a huge difference between me as a teacher and somebody else as a student, right? So I cannot just tell a student, okay, do exactly what I say. No, the methods that they learn have to be adapted to their level, right? It doesn't make sense to burden yourself with band 9 descriptors when you just need a 7 or 7.5 or even 8 for that matter. Because again, you have limited time, almost all of you have jobs, you have families as well. So you have to use the time that you have efficiently. You don't want to burden yourself studying like 6 hours a day. Who can do that? I cannot do that. You know, I'm like a very lazy person, but I still, despite being lazy, despite not studying every single day, almost every language exam that I've done, I've always been at the top. Number one or number two, never less than that. So you don't have to be some, studying 5, 6 hours a day type of person. Not at all. In fact, that's counterintuitive. That's counterproductive. I don't recommend doing that at all. Not even to my students. You'll see their study plans just have half an hour to 1 hour of studying each day. So avoid risk factors. Also, try to work on really include, phrasal verbs and collocations. Those are really important because people who are struggling at a 6.5 or 7 level usually have issues using phrasal verbs and collocations naturally. So build that vocabulary instead, and also only use words you're 100% sure of. That is really important. And then let's get to task achievement. Now, the biggest issue I see is people don't understand the question type. They don't even know, is this an opinion essay, discussion, problem solution? Use the right format, right? Now, again, this is, I wouldn't teach you the format right now because it's like a huge lesson entirely. It takes, in fact, quite a few lessons to teach our students the right format. But if you use a discussion essay format for an opinion essay, then you cannot get more than a 6.5 in task achievement. And that, of course, impacts your overall writing score. So use the right format. Also understand the theme or topic of your essay. A lot of people, either because they're stressed or because, again, could also be because of, lack of word choice skills, they just don't understand what exactly am I supposed to write about. What is my essay about? Is my essay about child obesity? Is my essay about, children using cell phones? Is my essay about crime? Right? What is my essay about? What content am I supposed to include here? You need to be very clear on that, because task achievement, it's actually relatively easy to get a 7.58 in task achievement. But you need to have a crystal clear, sharp, super sharp idea. And it's not difficult as long as you, have the right guide, the right teacher, somebody teaching you to do this. Because, of course, as a test taker, as a student, you wouldn't be able to evaluate yourself like that. Yeah. I know some people who've never taken the exam, they like to self-study, which is great. You can definitely achieve a lot by self-studying. But you don't really want to waste exam fees, right? So it's always better to, save money, save time, get the right guidance. That's really important. So understand two things very clearly: your task type, what kind of essay is this, and also what's the theme or topic. Make sure that you have good, high quality supporting ideas. Now, why is this not typing? I'm completely okay. High quality supporting ideas with examples. Examples are compulsory. If you want a 7.5, I would say have at least 2 to 3 examples in each body paragraph. By high quality ideas, I mean not creative or unique or anything like that. Not at all. It's just that it has to be easy for the other person to understand, because writing or even speaking, it's all about communication. It's all about passing a message on to another person. It's not about me showing off my skills. Oh, look, I can write poetry and I can write like Shakespeare. No, it's not about that at all. It's all about communication. Explaining to another person what's in my head, right? So that's what you want to do. And finally, we have coherence and cohesion. So now, one thing that is really important that I see all the time, cohesion, please avoid, just ban, I would say, firstly, secondly, on the one hand, blah, 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 etc., etc. Avoid them. The problem is that if you're looking for, again, only if you're looking for 7.5, 8, etc., these are not bad at all. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, on the one hand, on the other hand, etc. They are good. They make perfect sense. However, the higher your band score, goal is, the more nuanced your language has to be, the more control you have to have over what you're expressing, right? And to have the right kind of control, nuance to express myself correctly, I kind of also need a good lexical resource, a good vocabulary. In fact, none of these band, descriptors are separate from each other. Yeah, I cannot get a high score in task response if my coherence is weak. I cannot get a high score in task response if my lexical resource is weak. How am I going to explain ideas if I don't even have the words to explain them, right? So it's not possible, for example, that someone gets an 8 in task response but has only a 6 in lexical resource or grammar, etc. Huge differences like that just don't, that's just how language works, not how the exam works. That's just how any language learning functions. So don't use these transitions. Use more natural transitions, especially ones that include punctuation. Especially semicolons are rare, so use them. And when you use a semicolon, people take notice. Oh my God, because I mean, come on, they're very rare nowadays. People don't use them because they don't know how to use them correctly, even native speakers. So use them, use more pronouns, more relative pronouns as well, and more demonstrative adjectives. And you can find out what all these things are by just Googling them. So that's it. That's what you need to know. If you're at a 6.5 or 7 at the moment and you need to get to a band 7.5, you need to just work on these things. Now, of course, I'm not saying you just do these things and that's it, because someone needs to check your work. Someone needs to give you feedback. Ideally, someone needs to teach you the right methods as well. But this is a really good starting point. Now, if you would like me to explain any of these things or do another live stream, maybe tomorrow or some other day, about any topic whatsoever, just leave a comment down below and I'll take it up. All right then, it was great being here and having you here explaining this to you. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.